Meditation is really good for you. It lowers blood pressure, reduces the level of cortisol, stress hormone in your blood, reduces the level of lactate also, which is associated with anxiety. And of course, anything that lowers your stress level in general is very good for you. It helps you sleep better. People that meditate are more likely to give up addictions, and people who meditate tend to be happier. But if you've ever done it, you realize this is a highly unnatural thing to do. I mean, it depends. I mean, there's two different kinds of meditation. Generally speaking, there's two broad categories of meditation. One is concentrative meditation and one is mindfulness meditation. Both of them are very unnatural things to do. Concentrated meditation is something where you focus your mind on a single thing, and then as your mind drifts away from it, then you bring it back to that thing. So you could do it with, you could visualize a candle burning, and as your mind drifts away, you come back to that image of a candle burning, or, there's some forms where you have an image of a mandala. You look at the mandala in real life, and then you close your eyes and try to picture that mandala in your head, and you keep going back and forth until you can hold that image in your mind. It's just, you're just basically focusing your attention. The most common one is mantras. You just take some phrase or some word and you repeat it over and over and over. And then your mind gets bored with this, of course, and drifts off and thinks about something else. And at some point, could be a minute, could be 5 minutes, you go, oh, I'm supposed to be repeating this mantra, and you go back to it. So that's the process of concentrative meditation, is your mind drifts and then it comes back to it. And then you bring it back to whatever it is you're supposed to be concentrating on. And this has a profoundly relaxing effect on your mind. The other form of meditation is mindfulness. So like Zazen or Vipassana, or it could be just called mindfulness. You're trying to be aware of the present moment. And usually they use a concentrative form to begin with, like focusing on your breath. And then once you have enough power of concentration, then you move to actual mindfulness, which is just being aware of what's happening at the moment, what's going on in your body, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in the world, everything, just being here. Although both of these forms of meditation have lots of positive benefits, they are different. In one experiment they did, testing or comparing the two kinds of meditation, they would have people meditators hooked up to EEG. So it's measuring their brain waves. And while these people were meditating, they would do something that would disturb them, like a loud noise. And they repeated this loud noise. And it was interesting, the response they got was so different between the two kinds of meditation, but completely appropriate to that kind of meditation. The focus kind of meditation, I think they were doing mantra meditation. The mantra meditators didn't react very much to the noise. They were very concentrated on what they were doing. And these were experienced meditators. So they were very focused, and the noise hardly affected their brain waves at all. First of all, you should know the normal way, if somebody was just sitting there not meditating, the normal reaction to the loud noise is that the first time the loud noise happens, the brain really reacts strongly to it. The next time it reacts less strongly, the next time less strongly, and eventually it doesn't really react much at all, gets used to it. It's called habituating. So the concentrative meditators, the mantra meditators, their brain didn't react normally. It hardly moved at all. Their brain waves hardly changed at all with the loud noise. And no matter how many times that loud noise happened, it hardly changed at all. With the mindfulness meditators, however, their brain reacted strongly on the first sound, just like a normal person, but then reacted strongly, just as strongly, on every time that it made that sound. The brain never habituated to it. Isn't that interesting? Has nothing to do with what I'm trying to talk about here, but I thought it was interesting. Anyway, meditation is very good for you, but it's a very unnatural thing to do. I can't imagine any animal in the world doing anything like that, repeating a word or repeating anything over and over to itself. It's just a really unnatural thing to do and extremely boring. But this activity is really good for us. It produces a very unique state. We have different states of mind that are very distinctive. And if you hook somebody up to measurements that was measuring their heart rate and their breathing rate and their brain waves, any physiologist or doctor could look at these measurements only and tell what state that person is. They're either waking or sleeping. Those are very different states that have their own unique characteristic composite of characteristics. And meditation has its own unique set of characteristics also, that if somebody knew what this was, what the characteristics were, they could also look at the brainwave pattern and the heart rate and breathing rate, and they would be able to tell that this person was meditating. It's a unique state of a low arousal level, is the way they put it, where the breathing rate is slow, the heart rate is slow, the brain waves are in a rhythmic pulse, usually alpha. And yet at the same time, so physiologically, the person is very calm, and yet at the same time, they are very alert. So normally when you have that kind of physiological calmness, you're not alert, you're asleep. Or if you have a lot of alertness, you're awake and your brain waves are in beta, kind of busy. Your brain is busy. And so you're alert, but your body is physiologically aroused, right? So meditation is a very unique combination of physical relaxation and mental alertness. It's very distinct, and it's a really good state for things. It's a really good state for thinking. It's a really good state for relaxing completely. It would probably be a good state for studying or for observing or for paying attention to something. So it's a useful state, and yet the process to create it is really unnatural. So I had a thought, what natural process, what natural activity is meditation a substitute for? Find out when we come back. And now, a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Anchor, which is a platform that allows you to make podcasts, and it's what I'm using right now. It's really easy to use. It's free. It's got editing tools. They help you distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and so on. And they make it easy to make money on your podcast by making it possible for you to add ads. You can download the Anchor app for free or go to anchor.fm to get started. What natural process, what natural activity is meditation a substitute for? It is watching a fire. When people watch a fire, their blood pressure drops, and the longer they watch the fire, the lower their blood pressure goes. It's extremely calming. And if you've ever done it yourself, you know it is extremely calming. And also you're paying attention, because fire is interesting to watch. It's always changing, and it's sort of fascinating. And it turns out that human beings have evolved with fire a lot longer than anyone used to think. Now they're thinking human beings tamed fire more than 1 million years ago. So most of our most dramatic evolution in our brain size has happened since we tamed fire. So in other words, we didn't evolve into Homo sapiens and then tame fire. We tamed fire first and then evolved into Homo sapiens. So we evolved with fire. We evolved having already tamed fire. We are like fire people. And I believe that it is a restorative experience to sit and watch a fire. Restorative, healthy, rejuvenating experience. And somebody somewhere along the way found that you could meditate and produce the same state artificially. On a somewhat related note, some researchers decided to study the Kung, the Bushmen. These are Africans that live in the Kalahari Desert. they're one of the most ancient people, and they are still hunter-gatherers. So they're living like they've lived for tens of thousands of years. One of the things they found is that the kind of communication they had with each other was different depending on whether they were around a fire or not. They told more stories around the fire, and they told more personal disclosures, and they complained and criticized less around the fire. It was a unique and distinct pattern that changed when they were sitting around a fire together. And if you've ever seen any depictions of hunter-gatherer societies that have been studied, they all gathered around a fire, usually every night. And if you're interested in reading about how humans evolved with fire, I strongly recommend the book Catching Fire by Richard Wrangham. In there, he makes a very compelling case that what made us human was cooking our food, that people are often trying to figure out whether our intestines or our teeth have evolved to eat meat or to eat vegetables or what. What have we evolved to be? And it is absolutely true that we evolved eating cooked foods, and our teeth and our digestive system are all adapted to eating cooked food. As a matter of fact, we don't survive very well eating raw food. I think one of the experiments he talked about in there is that there is a group, I guess you'd call it practitioners, called raw foodists. So they don't cook any food. They consider it unnatural to cook food. No other animal cooks food, and so they eat raw food only. And about half the women who do this stop menstruating. They're not getting enough calories. Whenever women don't get enough calories, they stop menstruating. Our digestive system has shortened because we've eaten cooked food for so long. We have adapted to eating cooked food. And so our digestive system is only as big as it needs to be, because it's a waste of energy to have an excessive digestive system, because cooked food is easier to digest. You get more nutrition out of it with less effort by your intestines or by your digestive system. So we evolved with fire, and somehow we created this really rejuvenating state watching fire. And we can accomplish the same thing without fire by using meditation. Okay, this is Adam Lee Kahn on The Atom Bomb.